What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Aiming Up with Kenneth and Trey, episode 9. With us, as always, is a good friend and colleague and mentor of mine, Anthony Castore. We're just going to circle around, see how everybody's week's been, and then we'll dive into it. So, Kenneth, let's just start with you. We'll go Anthony, and then we'll go with me, and then
Sounds
go from
good. Um, Week's good. I don't really have much to say. It's kind of like um the calm before the storm, it feels like in January. I don't you know what I mean? It's kind of like I don't all the holiday stuff is over. I've had a couple client calls today, but I know that I've got to I have to finish my app and I have to do a couple of things before, the rest of the year. So it's like, well, I have the podcast today and then I'll pretty much work all the way till the next time we do the podcast. It feels like
there.
that's how much work I've got.
Right.
But it's all positive stuff and family's good and dogs are good and can't really complain.
Sweet. How about you, Anthony? How's everything been?
Been a great week, great year. The launched some membership tiers through my school community, and that's really taken off. I'm at 60% of what my annual goal is going to be, and just have
Holy
that for
crap.
about 2 weeks.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And really, just Trey will tell you, I'm a guy that asks a lot of questions and always out there learning. So I've been head first since since long before the beginning of the year, but feels like the more you learn, the more you want to learn, and just so many cool things out there. So great week.
Right.
That's awesome.
Sweet, man. How many people have you had sign up for because you had the free one going for a while, for probably like what, 9 months or so right now, give or take?
I think I started I'm trying to remember. I think it was August
As
that
soon as you posted it, man, I was in it. I was like, let's go.
man, I appreciate that.
I
Thank
didn't
you.
even have school. I was like, I gotta sign up for this and figure out what it is.
It's school's the coolest thing because really you think about all the stuff we learn, and I joke with people, we probably forget more than we learn. And when you have a school community, it's a great reference. You can use it like a encyclopedia. Go back and look at those things that you were looking up, the details of them. The conversations around them stimulate more thought, deeper dives, and I learn a lot from the people in there. And really, it's the cool thing about a school community too is it's what you're interested in. So you're going to attract people that love nerding out on the same things you do. So there's
Yeah, when you post something, man, I'm like chomping at the bit to read it. And then
thank you so
sometimes I don't
much.
have enough time because you're so it's so detailed. So sometimes I don't have enough time and I'm trying to digest it all. And then I'm like, dang, I'm gonna have to come back to this. So it is a nice thing that you can kind of reference to over and over and over again because there's just
Yeah,
so much information that you put out.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Hmm.
So how many people did you end up getting to go from the free? Because I know you have tiers of it, but how many people were you able to transfer into that
So I've
kind of like
got
that paid
30
membership?
active members, and then I just launched it's a more kind of abbreviated membership tier. And the way I would describe it, the newest one that I launched, it's for people that don't really want to make the commitment to coaching, but still want to get a little bit more. Then I'll continue to have the free community and post a lot of articles, but I'll be doing some video breakdowns each week. And it'll be things like I'll go through a protocol, I'll talk about the thought logic behind why did I make this change? Why was this compound used instead of this? Why did we take this out? There'll be a Q&A. There'll be peptide of the month. Everybody loves to ask questions about peptides. And then there'll be kind of I call it a miscellaneous week where it could be anything from something I figured out about how to learn things faster to journal article that I read about a new compound coming out that I'm jazzed about, and like a kid in a Lego store.
Yeah,
And with this one, it'll officially launch in February. I've had a lot of people reach out, and the bottleneck right now is my AI guy is on a cruise for another week and a half, so he hadn't been able to set up the landing page for it.
that's cool. I
Cool.
mean, I'm gonna have to go spend some money, I think. So-
Yeah.
I'd love to have you in there, and it should be a lot of fun. And we got some really cool stuff planned that we'll be digging into.
Cool.
That's great. What
That's
about you,
awesome.
Trey? You had a tough
Yeah.
week so far.
Yeah, this is like my first day kind of working. Anthony, you don't know, we ended up putting down one of our cats
Oh man, I'm sorry.
Monday, yeah, Monday night. So yeah, it's been a tough week. So um
Yeah, it really would be.
yeah, that's basically all that I have done. Um the wife and I have done counseling twice together this week because it's just been hard. Wasn't really expected. We kind of thought he was doing good, and then Sunday night he just wasn't doing good. We stayed up all night, and then she took him Monday morning, and then they told us it's probably best to go through with it. So we did that Monday night, and then we're just trying to take care of the other two and figure out everything. So that's kind of been me. This is the first bit of any type of work I've done since. So that's it. Nothing
Well,
nothing
you're
major.
in company of friends, and we'll
Yeah.
keep it light and we'll
Yeah.
keep it fun, and we don't have to think about all the difficult
Right.
things today,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
So we
absolutely.
can go ahead and dive into it. I mean, I'll start with like how I met you, Anthony. It was back
I
in,
can't wait. I want to know.
yeah,
Let's
I was
go.
at Austin's seminar. I think it was like
Yeah.
spring of 2018 or so, because it
Uh-huh.
was back when you were still working with Serrano.
Yeah.
And you came, what was it you were certified in that you were showing us? Because you've done a couple of seminars with Austin and I, but what was with that one? What was, because I can't remember.
That was the RPR, the
Yes, that's
reflexive
what it was.
performance reset. And I think at that time it was actually called Be Activated. It might have even
Yes,
been
it
before
was
they
still
branded
with
it to
that.
the RPR. Yeah.
Yeah, because you came with Serrano. It was you, Serrano, and then Mendelssohn
Yeah.
was with him. I think Serrano had his daughter with him as well, because she was kind of like interning type thing.
Showing everybody she could do more pull-ups than us. Yeah.
Right. And and that's where we first kind of connected from there. And then we just kind of stayed connected
Yeah.
from there. And then like we lived in the same,
You just clicked as friends.
yeah, we connected. And then we happened to be, when we moved to Palo, Ohio, Anthony,
We're
I literally
neighbors.
had just moved in and ordered a bunch of gym equipment. I happened to see Anthony walking the neighborhood. I was like, holy shit, like this guy
Oh,
lives
no
right
Yeah, what
there.
are
kidding.
the
Oh,
odds?
Yeah, so
wow.
Anthony lived right there. So it was always
Yeah.
like we always had that connection from that aspect. And then we've always stayed in contact.
Yeah.
We've had lunches, we've just bounced ideas off each other. We're going to meet next week. Um, but you're one of those guys I've always thought very highly of because like it's hard because you have people that are good at what they do, but they're kind of crappy people. They have people that are like really good people, but they are just not good at what they do. And it's
Yeah, so
like,
I'm close friends with Trey and Austin, and what they've said about you makes me respect you. Like you're automatically in this like top 10 class of people
yeah.
that are in our industry that are like really good at what they do, and they're really good, genuine people. So, and you don't even know me. So it's like, I'm just
I'm
taking their word
genuinely
for it.
humbled. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and
So
you're just one of those individuals, and there's very few people like you and I can have a conversation, and there's stuff that we can both learn from each other. But every time you and I ever talk, there's at least one thing I learned that I didn't think of. And I'm sure there's been times it's the other way around, but every single time we've ever spoken or came across paths, there's always something I learned from you. And the reason why we had want to have you on is kind of the peptide stuff. And I know Kenneth has questions because a lot of the stuff that's being talked about now, like BAM, for example, and SLU, like it's not like you have a massive following, you have a bigger following than most people, but people don't realize you were back studying BAM in like 2017 or 2018 before Joe
Before I
Blows
had
on the
gray
internet.
hair.
Right. It was before anyone was saying anything about it. Like we were all talking about peptides. Like I remember I started using peptides in 2014, 2015. I was like 19 or
yeah,
20. So it's like that's almost 12 years ago for me. And you're one of those other individuals I consider that was still like way ahead of the game than what's being talked about now. So if you want, like, introduce like kind of like how you got into it, like where you been. I mean, like Kenneth, I don't know if you know Charles Poliquin, like Anthony used to work with him. Like,
no kidding. Yeah, I
yeah,
guess your strength
he's
background.
been
Okay,
around my
wow.
block for a while. Like
Yeah,
he's
so
not
like you're
someone
kind
that's
of
like
like this
new.
OG dude that's like you've
Yeah.
seen. It's kind of like Austin. It's like Austin's been around so long. He was around before Instagram, and then now he's kind of changed the structure of you know, coaching in a lot of areas, and it sounds like you're kind of in that same realm. And I just want to touch on one thing. So I'll never forget this. One of my closest friends owns a nutrition store, All Pro Nutrition here in Raleigh. His name is Patrick Richardson. He's a co-owner with Pure Factor with Austin and Matt Casano. And he showed me this picture, and I cannot remember the bodybuilder's name now. Um, but he went by the nickname Tank, and he was a black guy. He was kind of short guy.
Oh yeah,
Excuse me.
John Sherman, I think
Yeah.
from Atlanta.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he sent me this picture, and he was working with a coach. He was like, dude, he's on this list of peptides, and it's the next thing. And he's telling us all this stuff. Oh, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. So he's telling me, you got to take a look at all these peptides he's taking. And so I looked at peptides for the first time that day, and I was like, where do you even find this stuff? This is like
Yeah.
2013. And so there was this like double secret forum website that you could go and get it, and it was expensive, and nobody really knew anything. So then I started in 2014 using some. So pick up where you entered in.
Sure, yeah. So, well, first of all, the OG part, I'm the O for sure. I'm old. I'm 53, and when I was probably mid 90s, I had the privilege of Mike Francois was my trainer, and I was really into bodybuilding. You wouldn't know it looking at me, but I still like bodybuilding. You just, those who can do, those who can't coach. So, being around that scene, people were just starting to talk about like IGF-1 and that kind of thing. And I was really intrigued by this because it seemed like, that's something that could level the playing field. And then I did a little bit more reading along those lines, these peptides, what are these? And I found out about melanotin. And melanotin, it's like, man, you can get a tan without having to put on Protan. Like, that's going to do my sheets a favor. That's going to do my nose a favor. And it sounds pretty great. So I was totally into it. And really funny story, unofficially, I may or may not have ordered IGF from a pharmaceutical company in Australia
Yeah.
and, committed to the process.
Yeah.
And I've always been somebody that just asks a lot of questions. I think if I were to say, what's my superpower, it's that I'm curious and I ask a lot of questions. And I think when you do that and you're not afraid of being wrong, that's genuinely like how you take those big strides and you get better. So the more I found out about, or kind of I back up a little bit, the draw for bodybuilding for me was, man, with the tools that we have available, I can go from, I was like buck 17 dripping wet when I graduated high school to like these massive people you see, just muscles on top of muscles. Like, what's the formula for this and why does it work? And that whole mindset of just wanting to put those puzzle pieces together and figure this stuff out, it ended up taking me down that road with the peptides. So really since about mid 90s, reading about them, maybe using them. And of course, you get your injury and you find out about BPC, thymosin beta 4, some of these that are becoming a little bit more mainstream. And the turning point was when they finally offered like some formalized education. So like peptide certifications. I was like, this is perfect. I could go learn about this stuff. And not being a doctor, I knew I'm not going to be able to prescribe them or anything, but I just wanted to have the information. So I registered. I was afraid to go in person because everybody'd see me and be like, who's the knuckle
Whose
dragger
cert
in
was
the
it? Was it
back?
Dr. Seed's cert?
So I did A4M
That's all I know.
and even did Jay Campbell's when it came
Yeah.
out. Literally everything I could find on
Yeah.
peptides. If there's a peptide certification, I've done it. And after I went through those, I did the A4M has two levels, and then they have like some a peptide IV. They have the weight loss management peptide. I did all those, and I ran out of courses to take, so I took them again. And then with the seed stuff, I've done literally every single one they've had,
Yep.
except for, and it's kind of a running joke with Matt Seeds, the CEO, and myself. They did a beta testing of it's called a mastermind where 10 people in a room and you do case studies. And the only reason I didn't go is because they didn't post it. Like it was just invite only, and I'd never um, really built up. I'd done all this stuff, but not in person. So after I found out about this, I'm like, oh, can I just get the recordings? So I've got the perfect record, but the client confidentiality, they weren't able to. But yes, I did all the SSRP stuff, and that's really where I found my home because what I loved about it was finally it went from here's your protocol to this is why this works, and we're not limited to peptides. We can look at pharmaceuticals, we can look at nutrition, we can look at lifestyle, all those pieces. How do they fit together, and how does that translate into the cell, and why is the cell making the decisions it is? So it's really, I mean, it just feels like you're so empowered when you see how all these pieces fit together. And I can't get enough of it. And the SSRP, they welcomed me with open arms. I'm the first non-physician fellow they've had there. So that tremendous privilege and just so grateful for them.
So you started there, and then where did it, I guess, talk me through where you've been from there? Because I know you've presented at, what is it, World Congress, right? Did you do it
Yeah, the
last year?
Peptide World Congress.
Yes, it
And
was last year, and then you're presenting again this year.
yeah, I
I guess
think I'll
keep
be.
talking me through like how, okay, you start with doing the certs and everything, connecting with seeds and everything to where you are now.
So it's kind of funny. I did all these certs, and it's like, I'm spending more than a Harvard education on extra learning materials, and I'm not really doing anything with it. So I had a business coach, amazing business coach, Owen Lacey out of Ireland,
Yeah. Yep.
and he had some really brilliant ideas. And we were talking about putting together like a course. Like, why don't you take what you learned, put it into a course for trainers um, and I always kind of had this vision. I'd done the N1 certifications with my training background,
Yep.
and with those and what I'd learned from Charles, and about all these different training stimulus, and then you learn about peptides and the pathways and the mechanisms, you see the connection. So I always had this vision of how these things go together, and Owen had a great idea of doing a course, but I am absolutely the worst tech person you'll ever meet.
Right.
And it was funny, one of the best things that came out of the working with a business coach is discovering that here's somebody who knows how to have success. He's been successful. He's made other people successful. But at the same time, what I learned from it was that I have a skill set, but what other people have done that's traditional doesn't work for me.
Yep.
That I've always wanted to work within. Where am I comfortable? What are my strengths? And the course just didn't click, but I started kind of posting on Instagram and ended up getting the fellowship with SSRP.
Yep.
And then they asked me about if I'd like to present, and I'm like, you guys had me at hello, just like
Right.
Jerry Maguire.
Okay. And then it's just
So
been off from there.
yeah,
I'm
it's
curious, and I've never asked you this. How did you get connected with Poliquin? I'm assuming you started with Charles courses.
I got a great story about this
Yep.
one. You'll get a kick out of this. So, my mom just had this amazing gift for she could talk to anybody.
Yep.
And Charles was a man of few words.
Yep.
And I'd read every single book and article he had, and my mom knew how passionate I was about strength training and wanting to learn from the best. And my mom being my mom, she never thought about like this guy can't be reached on a phone. She literally called. And Charles, who spends, 5 minutes talking to somebody, he was on the phone with my mom for 2 hours. And she told him all about me and talked to him about all sorts of things. And by the end of the conversation, Charles was like, um, I don't believe in discounting things. I either do things for free or I charge full price. And your son sounds like a great guy. He's got a great mom. Have him come to a certification for free. So I went and I did my PICP, and I'm just a real, I ask questions, I go get her. So I started talking to him right away, and he got me a job with Pollock and Performance in Chicago.
Okay.
So started working for him there, and stayed in contact and ended up
And then how
becoming
long
a.
did you work with Charles? Because I mean, he had Poliquin, and then eventually, was it before his passing that things changed, or was it right after his passing
It
that
was before,
it
yeah.
was before?
So I coached at the Chicago Center for it was around 2010, and then when I came back, I continued to do his courses, but that's when I was just doing kind of training in Columbus and
Yeah.
some distance stuff.
Okay.
And then with the Polican, so Polican group that Charles used to be with split apart, and he had Strength Sensei, and
Hmm.
then there was Polican group,
Okay.
and then Strength Sensei ended up kind of going online. And when they brought on online coaches, I was brought in to be one of the online coaches for them.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, Charles, I can't say enough good things about him. He's really the catalyst for the whole systems thinking and connecting the dots, I think, in the
Charles, like,
industry.
I didn't get to study under him, but like obviously through you, did Luke Lehman work at the Chicago one? Which one did he work
He
at?
worked at the Rhode Island one.
It was at the Rhode Island one? Okay.
Uh-huh.
So I learned a lot about Charles from him because I've mentored
Yeah.
him and done his courses. And then Dave O'Brien, I don't know if you know who that is.
Oh,
He's in
yeah.
Australia.
Yeah.
So Dave is who mainly mentors me now. I learned a lot from him. But I remember being a teenager reading some of Charles' stuff, and he does some of the most wildest crap I've seen, either training,
It's so cool.
supplementation.
Yeah.
And it was like some of the stories that Dave has told me, it's just extreme stuff. I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, like, so it's a lot of
Can you
people
give an
now.
example?
I mean, what were some examples you have? I know like he would do some crazy stuff with like fish oil and omega 3s. I don't even remember like grams and grams and grams of it. He was the first one I saw doing like the mega dosing of glutamine, like 100 plus
Yeah. If,
grams for
like, so
workout
one of
training.
the, or a couple of the protocols, if somebody was overtrained, you'd have a day where they had 150% of their calories that day, and you'd dose glutamine to, 10 grams per meal. So it ended up being 50 grams per day. And then post-workout for like low carbohydrate people, he was the first person I'm aware of that talked about using glutamine and glycine
Yes.
instead of carbohydrates. And then what I remember about him that was like really like next level voodoo stuff was the instant strengthening techniques, and there were a series of acupressure points. They come from the Applied Kinesiology Synopsis, which is like this huge, thick blue book. I've actually, I got it down here. But Charles was brilliant. He was able to extract all these activation points out of there, all this information about applied kinesiology, and translate it into how can this make a sprinter move faster? How can this make a power lifter hit their flawlessly hit their lift? And it was just, it was like you were watching a magic show, the stuff this guy could do.
No kidding. Hmm. I'm curious about the things that are on your earlobes that I just noticed. What is that?
So this is it's called an alpha stem, and it's what it does. It syncs your brain to alpha waves. Alpha are going to be the calm focused, and it just kind of sends a real low frequency signal that's keeping you in that I think it's
Hmm.
6 to 8 hertz range. And for me, it's really good. It's funny. You guys probably tell from what I put up in my school community and talking to me, I'm probably a little bit towards the hypervigilant side, and I brain just keeps racing. And sometimes when I take in information, I can take stuff in really fast, but the limiting step is how fast can I organize that in the hippocampus, and how effectively can I organize it so I can recall it. And with the alpha
Hmm.
stem, if you can imagine, like this is a road. It's like having a traffic cop over here that controls the speed of the signal going in, so it can be better organized and recalled more efficiently. And what's really cool about this device is, like, if your doctor writes for PTSD, insurance will cover it. like Army vets. A lot of them
Huh.
benefit from this. And there's an attachment you can get to for it too. Like if you have any kind of pain, it looks like these two like uh,
Like pointed.
prong things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you just put them around the injury because a lot of times when you have an injury or scar tissue, it changes the polarization and the charge in the tissue itself. So it's a real good way
Hmm.
to make some inroads into that.
So I'm looking at it online right now. Uh, and have you ever heard of a new fit newbie?
Yeah, man, that thing's awesome. I'm actually contemplating getting one of those. I don't do a lot of training anymore, but it's a great device.
I have one. And so, in fact, I bought mine probably 6 months before Austin bought his.
Uh-huh.
And I had a friend of ours, Matt. He's a bodywork specialist down in Tampa, and I was at a coaching seminar, and you could go back and you get Matt to work on you. And I had tendonitis in my elbow, in my shoulders, and I had some tendonitis in my knees. And he used the newbie and like cured me in like 45 minutes.
That's
And
awesome.
it was the wildest experience I think I'd ever had. And I looked at Matt and I was like, "How much does this machine cost, dude?" And he's like, "It's about $20,000."
Yeah.
And at the time, it was in 2020 or so. And so I have a dog. His name's Bronx, and he's a pug. I'm showing
That's a
you.
good looking pup. Love them.
Thanks, man. So his back legs don't work great, and so don't have like an actual diagnosis, because to get the diagnosis is going to cost us like, I don't know, $10,000 just to do a test, and we
Yeah.
couldn't even guarantee it. So at the end of the day, I thought to myself, I could use this for training lagging body parts potentially. And then I've got a pug whose back legs don't particularly work, and I'm gonna see if I could put it on the dog. And the sales rep that I talked to, he's like, "Oh yeah, you can totally put it on the dog, totally." And I was like, "Okay, great." So I purchased it, and it did work on him some, but in the
That's so
context
cool.
of the conversation, what I recently have done is I've put him on TRT, about 30 milligrams of test a week, and I've put
Uh-huh.
him on oral BPC 157. Dude, it has changed this dog's life. He's
I can
almost walking
imagine.
walking normal again. Um, and it's wild to me. So like, just on that, I know you don't know my dog and you don't know me, but if you were to maybe explain to the crowd that's listening, why would that have worked in relative terms to something that's stimulating the muscle potentially? So what I was trying to do with him with the newbie was stimulate the muscle to make it stronger, right?
Mhm.
And then on the other side of the spectrum, I'm using a peptide to potentially heal something, right? Can
Uh-huh.
you kind of get into the weeds about that,
Yeah,
just as an
absolutely. In fact,
example?
yeah, I got an English bulldog. He's 10 years old. He's turned 10 in July. And I mean, he still runs around like a puppy. He'll play as much as you want to.
That's
And I've
awesome.
had him on BPC, KPV, and Thymosin for, gosh, I think it's been about 2 years. And when we think about how those things work, so like a BPC, um, that's going to upregulate or not upregulate, it's going to modulate. Difference between upregulate is just indiscriminately increasing. Modulate is when we're talking about like having your hand on a volume dial and being able to adjust it. So it modulates VEGF, vascular endothelial growth factor. And when you have something like legs that don't work, one of the probably your two bottlenecks are going to be uh, neural intervention, nervous system.
Hmm.
Are the nerves in good shape? Are there nerves that connect to the muscles? Is there a good connection? And then your uh, vascular system, the blood supply there. So when you modulate VEGF through BPC, it creates they're called runner veins, and if you can imagine these little guys that are just running around looking for something that's wrong and they find it, they run to it. Now you have a blood supply. And
Oh,
so you're getting blood supply to an injured area that had probably low blood supply.
interesting.
BPC will also downregulate like NFKB, primary inflammatory pathways. So we're decreasing inflammation, and it's going to increase sensitivity of growth hormone at the fibroblasts. So in terms of like some of the connective tissue that could have been damaged now, it's going to have better response to the growth hormone he has available. And then when we think about we're layering like a newbie on top and we're sending electrical signal. And with the newbie, one of the nice things is you can be real precise about the intensity of current that you're sending there.
Hmm.
And that's going to improve things like ion flow. So we're looking at like calcium, sodium, potassium, how those are flowing. And when those are flowing, that's going to improve the polarity of the cell membrane. And when the cell membrane, so there's that synergy there. When the cell membrane's polarity is in place, that's a long-winded way of saying the cell can talk to things and it can hear things. So good communication back and forth. And when we think about how peptides work, they're signaling molecules. So they depend on the membrane having polarity. So, yeah, just to kind of scratch the surface on that, I think that's awesome that he's making that progress and not
So
not just
now I'm like, what do I need to do more to
uh,
help him? Because if you've got KPV on your bulldog, and can't remember the other one that you mentioned, but
thymosin. Yeah.
can you go through kind of your thought process on those three peptides for dogs? And I'm not trying to like have a dog
Oh
conversation here,
no,
but
it's
I love
I
my
absolutely
animal,
love
and it's like if
dogs.
there's anything that I can do to help him, I'm like all in. I'm all in.
No, I love
So
it. I mean, I love dogs. I talk about dogs all day. So,
yeah,
and I love that you're committed to helping your dog. So, when really in terms of the peptides that'll work on a dog, the way I landed on that blend, I'd looked into the BPC and the it's actually the thymogen. It's the oral one. Um, it comes in a formula with the KPV and BPC and KPV together. So if we're thinking about things that can go wrong in a dog or a person, things that need attention, we've got microbiome, we've got immune metabolism, and we've got cellular metabolism. Those are always going to be our three targets. And even though we're talking about dogs, people can think about this in terms of people. If you fix those things, and even if you want to kind of put those in order, I would start with cellular metabolism, um, immune metabolism, and then microbiome. Um, it's cool, if you think about it, everything regresses to the flow of electrons, us having energy. So, like dogs' legs don't work. The reason they don't work is because energy is not being produced and it's not being supplied. And the reason energy is not being produced and supplied is because the cells made a decision to lose flexibility. It's relying more on glucose fermentation, which is going to create more oxidative stress. When there's oxidative stress, that's going to be more wear and tear on the inner membrane of the mitochondria. And that's really kind of the factory that energy, that ATP is made at. And if that factory is getting beat up and we can't make energy and we need energy, then that's going to kick in an inflammatory process because our immune system needs ATP, our nervous system needs ATP, brain, all our cells need ATP. And it's like living paycheck to paycheck when it's scarce, you make some pretty scarce decisions.
sure,
And for the immune system, instead of being able to say like, I don't need to have inflammation in the legs. It's saying like all hands on deck. I don't know if we need inflammation or not, but if there's a threat, we got to be prepared. We don't have time to think about it. And for the brain, the nervous system, it can't stop running, so it's eating up a lot of that glucose, and it's still there's not enough for it. And then the muscles, they're I hate to say it, but they're not really high up in the pecking order. Well, I should take that back. Your heart, of course, is at the top of the pecking order. In fact, like if you think about side note, if you think about where we have the most mitochondria, it's going to be our heart, and then kidneys is second, and then brain is third. If you think about energy use, it's heart, brain, and then kidneys. But so going back to, the thought logic behind the peptides, with the BPC, we have something that is supporting barrier integrity in the gut.
Is it
Um,
oral for your dog as well?
yeah.
Okay.
I do
Okay.
it's called Peptides, Pettides.
Okay.
Um, and the when you support the mucosal lining, you got that barrier integrity in the gut with that and the KPV strong effect on NFKB. So you're reducing that inflammation that causes cell junctions to split apart and lets things get through and causes inflammation and immune dysregulation. When we've got those two things going, so we can kind of tone down the inflammation. And then you think about what had happened when things are getting through. That's where autoimmunity comes from. So we want
Mhm.
something in there that's going to modulate that immune system response, and that's the thymogen. But it's funny. I was looking into Jeter had an issue actually Thanksgiving morning of all times. I had to take him to med vets. He was shaken, and I mean he's perfectly healthy, but he just started having tremors. We brought him over there, and they said he had a bulging disc, and uh, you know, I'm thinking to myself like, well, how'd this happen? And um, I'm always thinking, well, all right, so what can we do? So we think about what we need to do for that. So there's going to be nerve impingement. So I started looking into ARA 290 for dog because that works on the innate repair receptor, and you can start to repair damaged nerves. And it does a lot of the things erythropoietin does without creating erythropoiesis, so you don't get viscous blood. And then I looked into, again, cellular metabolism. We have to be able to support energy. If there's a injury, that's creating inflammation, and that's um, creating a big suck for energy. We want to decrease that inflammation, so the SS31. And there's actually a fairly large amount of research on SS31 in dogs.
No
And
kidding.
the
Is it
BPC,
injectable, the SS31, or are they doing an oral for dogs?
yeah, injectable.
Okay.
And the BPC is funny. I remember talking to Dr. Seeds about he had a Rottweiler. He's always had Rottweilers, and his Rottweiler, I think he was 5 when he had a knee injury. And of course, I mean, nobody knows more about peptides than Dr. Seeds, so he knew right away, get him on some BPC. And this dog healed up so fast, he kept him on there. And this dog outlived the other two, and I mean, just unbelievable.
You're kidding me.
So after I heard that, I was like, well, we're getting Jeter on BPC.
That's how
And
I mean, like, that's how I feel. Like, I'm so emotionally connected to this dog.
yeah,
He's like my spirit animal. So when you think about like peptides and stuff, and I think about my family. So, my son or my wife, if they need something, it's kind of the same thought
yeah.
process as we do with our pets. And so when I started doing it, it was so interesting. And here's a question that I have for you. So from a dosing perspective, I just took the BPC that I had that was oral for me, the
Uh-huh.
500 micrograms, and I just gave it to him one night with some peanut butter. And I was like,
Perfect.
let's just see what it does.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, is that dose going to be too high for his size? And then I thought, well, with a peptide like BPC or KPB or thymosin alpha 1 or like any of the ones that I'm kind of familiar with, at some point, is there ever a dose that's just too much? Like you're just going to overload the system and then there's going to be a negative feedback loop.
I think with peptides you have a bigger safety buffer in there because since they're a signaling molecule and they modulate, they don't indiscriminately just drive things up. That it would more likely be a case that you'd end up wasting some peptide than
Okay.
overdose. Now, there's probably some exceptions to that, but in terms of tolerance, especially oral, because of the acidity in their stomach compared to ours, You know how dogs can eat raw meat, no problem, and we
Yep.
can, but it's not always going to turn out well for us. The Going higher on the dose is you're probably going to be fine when you think about the acidity and how that's going to be metabolized. The Most of the dosing for animals, a lot of it's going to be surface area calculations, so not an exact science there. The I know with BPC you can go pretty high on dogs and thymosin beta 4 again you can go pretty
You
high.
could go pretty high too.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm intrigued. Do you think longevity wise that you're going to increase Jeter's lifespan? Like, I mean, if he's already 10 and he's the bulldog, he's already kind of out,
Yeah,
he's kind of outpacing it, right?
yeah,
Okay. Well, I might have to pick your brain a little bit more about Bronx,
yeah.
because and then I also, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but there's apparently a drug that extends dogs' lifespan now.
The
Um,
rapamycin, they're studying the dog longevity project.
yeah. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I've read through the research and it looks promising, but looks good on paper. But when I'm thinking it through, so when we think about how rapamycin works, that's going to be something that pretty much blocks mTOR. And when we think about blocking mTOR, losing muscle, and when we think about muscle as the currency of aging, we don't want to have cancerous growth. It's good for preventing, and a lot of dogs get cancer as they get older.
Right.
Benefits there, but I think you got to be real careful with the dosing on that because if you start losing muscle tissue, that's going to affect cellular metabolism negatively, and that's going to affect blood glucose regulation, and that indirectly could be a catalyst for cancer. So it, I'm really excited about the research on it, but I'm not sold on it yet.
Okay.
The
Interesting.
low-hanging fruit, when it comes to pet and people interventions too, is the pentosan polysulfate. That one they've used it in veterinary medicine for I think over 50 years, and they studied it in Australia 2019, and they found it regenerates cartilage. So people with arthritis regenerates cartilage, and it comes from the cell walls of plants, and it has some prebiotic benefits, so it
Hmm.
can help you get good bacteria in your system. It does amazing things in terms of reducing inflammatory cytokines, has some antiviral properties, and that ability to regenerate cartilage, especially for bulldogs, pugs. Uh,
Hmm.
they get a lot of wear and tear on those joints. They're structurally they love it
Especially
when
the
when you
front.
really go for it. Yeah, got to watch those elbows on them.
Right.
But yeah, it's really an awesome tool to use, and um, vet can easily call in a script for that. Funny story when we went to MedVets for Jeter, and they were talking about the things they were thinking about doing for the pain and intervention. And I was like, well, I don't know about this because of this. And the guy's like, huh, I hadn't thought of that. And then I was like, well, what if we did pentosan polysulfate? The guy at MedVets didn't know what it was, and I was like, he's like, I got to go get um, they have a book that has all the pharmaceuticals in there. And he looked it up, and he's like, huh, yeah, that could be really useful.
Can you
And
spell it? I'm going to actually Google it.
pentosan, and then separate
Okay.
word
Yeah.
polysulfate.
Did you blow his mind? Or is he like, wow?
Well, it was cool because I'm thinking to myself, like, I guess it was kind of two things. It was an aha moment because we rely on our vets blindly, thinking, they've got the best information. But it's a lot like when you go to your doctor, they do everything they can to have the best information. But with as busy as they are, sometimes they don't have access to it. So proactively learning about this stuff. So when you go to your vet, you're armed with some questions and
Right.
can put your dog in the best place for health. It made me realize like that's my responsibility. And then the rewarding part was knowing that, this is cool. He hadn't known about this, and now the next 10 people that come in that
You
have
can
dog
use it.
joint problems, yeah, I probably help their dogs out. So I
Did
felt
you give
great
them a
about
card and say,
that.
I mentor people. Just let me know if you need anything.
Nah, I'm just happy some people are gonna have healthy dogs.
Right. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. No, I love this conversation. And I think, even though earlier before the internet stopped, I had this, piece of paper laying in front of me, and apparently this bodybuilder was on all these peptides, and it was this particular coach. And um, Patrick and I, when I first started hanging around Patrick, he became my coach, and he was very conservative about PEDs and things. And we kind of followed John Meadows as much as you could follow
Hmm.
him at the time. And a friend of ours, Will Howard, he would talk about Poliquin, like there's this little independent group in North Carolina sort of following like your little group, up and where you
Oh,
were
that's
and where
cool.
Trey is and everything. So it's kind of a weird it's kind of a weird reality to sit here and have a conversation with you. But the cool thing is I was like, well, let's try this. Let's try these peptides and see. So in 2014, like I find myself like injecting all these various peptides in me and like not really knowing what the math was and and I did it for such a short period of time because I didn't understand what I understand now, the overall benefit. So when I'm sitting here talking to you and as wise as you are and as much information as you have, I know that our base of clients, at least at a bare minimum, they're just now getting into this stuff and they're beginners, right? So, and that's what's interesting about bodybuilding and performance enhancement and all that. I wish the medical community would kind of like whenever Robert F. Kennedy got hired, I wish he would have called some of the bodybuilders in the industry and been like, "Hey, where have you guys been the
Yeah.
last 10 years that we need to move the medical community to, in that direction because we don't have access to the information or we're not disseminating the information out properly. And how can we benefit the whole? Because it seems like us as a community, we've been on the head or at the beginning of some transformative things for people.
Hmm.
So when we're sitting here talking to them, if I was just a brand new beginner and wanted to understand how to better optimize myself, and let's just say I have the basics down. My nutrition's good, my sleep is good, my relationships are good. Uh, my life overall is pretty optimal, but
Hmm.
I just don't know much. With your knowledge, could you give us like a beginner um, course of like what would be helpful, an intermediate example, and then maybe like an advanced example too?
Yeah, sure. I think, and this will probably check all the boxes.
Okay.
It's kind of cool when you think about how do we build a protocol and what are the fundamentals. The thing to keep in mind is first and foremost coherence. And when we talk about coherence, that's the boring stuff, breathing. And when we breathe, we set nervous system tone, and when we set nervous system tone, um, and we've got good flow of electrons, that's when our cells are going to be receptive to the signals a peptide can send. So if you think about, we're building a pyramid here. At the bottom of that pyramid, we've got to have our circadian anchor, we've got to have our breathing, and we've got to have hydration. Um, Circadian anchor, it's just like if you look in your daily planner and like we have a podcast at 3:30, so you have to be there, and that's what you're going to do at 3:30. And if you have dinner at 5 o'clock, you're going to be there, that's what you're going to do. And your body's the same way. It's got these appointments, it likes to stick to them. So having that in place. And then hydration, like we talked about earlier, is just so important. When we talk about hydration, it's not just drinking water, it's the volume in the cell that creates polarity and that allows the cell to be in an environment or in a position where it can send and receive signals. And then the next layer, and this really helps us kind of pick which peptide so it all kind of come together. When you think about the biggest stress that you have 100% control over, you can do whatever you want with it. It's your training. You can train more, you can train less, you can train heavy, you can train light, but each of those is a decision, and each one is going to create a different response in the cell. There's going to be different adaptations, different cellular pathways activated, and that those pathways, we'll just set those aside for a moment. That's going to be kind of your shopping list. And then when you think about the next layer is going to be nutrition. That's going to be foundational to be able to recover and adapt, begin to adapt to that training stimulus. And if you have built the pyramid really well up to that point, you're in a great spot that most of the things you need to do are going to be done. And where we put in peptides, nutrition supplements, what we're looking at is what are the cellular pathways that are being activated? What are the energy systems being used? What's what's the bottleneck? Which one of these is kind of the guy trying to keep up with the other adaptations that's slowing us down? And then we pick the specific peptides that are going to increase the fidelity of that signal. So peptides aren't really something that are going to springboard you to the next stratosphere. They're things that are
Okay.
going to clear up the fidelity of the signal, fill in those gaps so that you can have that maximum adaptation to training. So when we talk about, beginner, intermediate, advanced, with the beginner, and I hate to take a step back from peptides, but the number one thing I reach for is a ketone monoester. And the reason this will make sense when I explain it, when we think about what are going to be our goals, what are things that we need to absolutely do? Well, redox covers everything, and redox is going to be balance of um, oxidation versus reduction. So losing electrons, gaining electrons. And if we're thinking like, well, what's the quick and easy way we can know that our redox is pretty optimal without having to go all science on it? Ketone ester. It improves the ratio of NAD to NADH, improves your redox potential. By doing that, you're going to have that NRF2 signaling that regulates your antioxidant system. You're going to be able to govern that oxidative stress. And in addition to that, ketone ester decreases interleukin 1 beta, interleukin 6, NFKB, tumor necrosis factor alpha. So these inflammatory cytokines we hear about with things like COVID, arthritis, all that stuff. So, as it just like it sounds, some antiviral benefits. A ketone monoester will immediately shove electrons through complex one, where you're going to be able to make have that cellular respiration that's creating, 32 to 36 ATP. So we've solved that um, energy crisis, and it decreases histone deacetylase, which is kind of the guy that writes the prescription for inflammatory genes. We've done all that with a ketone ester, and you can order that off of Amazon. The only ones I would order, the only true ketone monoester are going to be like a ketone aid, KE4, and Kinetic Pro. Both of those are the correct ratio of the uh, beta hydroxybutyrate 1,3-butane diol, and the ketone aid, the KE4, is the true monoester because it's got that ether bond in there. Um, but and there's a lot of other ketones out there. Without making it a lecture on ketones, just don't use them. Those are the only two. Now, when we get to peptides, now that we've got a handle on redox, we've got a handle on energy, now we've got some cool things available. So let's say somebody wants to, uh, somebody's training heavy, and we know that if they're training heavy and there's short bursts of energy, they're going to be um, creating oxidative stress. And we need to protect that inner membrane of the mitochondria. So light goes off. What's going to do that? You guessed it, SS31. It's going to
Yeah.
bind that cardiolipin and create some stability in there. It won't alter the flow of electrons, and it's going to allow them to train heavy and adapt. And then we think about too, if we're doing something that's nervous system intensive, then we've got to make sure we're maintaining a balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic tone. So if we're using like, and we want to see some fat loss and protein synthesis improvements, we can use like a GHRP, GHRH combo, so like a tesamorelin. I really like that one. And then like a GHRP 2 or 6. GHRPs have receptors on the afferent vagal nerve neurons, so they can improve the vagal tone. Um, and then you're also getting the benefits of deeper sleep, and you're also getting the you're in training your own growth hormone pulsatility. Um, and then when we think about um, what peptides do we have for the nervous system? Um, the challenge is it's really hard to get cerebrolysin these days. That would have, been the first choice. And kind of a cool side note, intramuscularly, you can locally improve the performance of muscle, or you can do it IV. Really good
Mm.
for everything from like cognitive decline to performance benefits.
Is it just difficult because the FDA's gotten involved, or like, okay,
Everfarm, the company that makes it, they stopped. It's a lot harder to get it. They won't. It's not approved in the U.S., so it's a whole process to try to get it in. And Cosmic Nootropic used to carry it. They would import it, but they got a cease and desist, so they can't anymore. And you see a lot of people popping up, but it's not real. And you definitely don't want to take the stuff that's not real. I've heard some horror stories.
okay,
But in terms of some options that we do have, like Solank is a great one, and that's a nasal spray too. If anybody's not a big fan of
Yep.
injections, it gives you the flexibility to kind of do that as needed. Um, it's going to improve GABA signaling, inhibitory neurotransmitter, so it kind of helps you downshift into that parasympathetic space, but it doesn't make you sleepy like if you took a Xanax or something. It just modulates that
so I've
GABA
never
response.
taken it before, and but I've used it with some clients who are high anxiety, and they may be using like a Xanax to come down and be regulated. And can you describe what it might feel like uh, in like sort of layman's terms when you do dose Solank like that?
Yeah,
If you
so
if you can, I don't know if you can.
yeah, no, absolutely. I'm happy to do the best I can to kind of articulate the difference there. So if you can imagine if you took like if you take a Xanax, you're going to be like wiped out, tired,
Mhm.
and it's more of a sedation.
Yep.
But it does calm you down. It takes the edge off of the anxiety. Whereas if you do like a Solank, what's going to happen is you're going to go from feeling like really kind of antsy to focused and calm and not tired, but you lose that kind of gotta do something feeling. So it kind of
Okay.
takes the edge off just enough that you can still function at a high level, but you don't feel anxious.
Okay. Curious too. Um, and this is just not. I just don't know. So SS31, um,
Uh-huh.
which I'm trying for the first time, and my energy level is like wild, wildly different. I mean, wildly different. Like I can't.
Oh yeah.
Like it's hard to describe to someone because it's it feels natural. It doesn't feel like a high. It
Hmm.
feels like I'm like, man, where have I been all my life? Sort of feeling.
Yeah.
So, and I'm just taking a small dose, like 2 milligrams, and
Yeah.
it's a significant change. So with SS31, being approved. I guess it's been approved by the
Oh
FDA,
yeah,
and
September 27th.
so it's getting off of the quote unquote black market. Are you what are we going to see there with the availability for the regular person when maybe they're utilizing it for maybe a pharmaceutical purpose that's more severe than just
Yeah.
optimization? Do you feel like that's just going to be one you just have to chalk up, like the one you mentioned before, where it's like, we just can't get it and it is what it is?
I, I think um I don't want to speculate too much. It's really hard to say. Generally, what happens in these situations is like in terms of compounding, it'll still be able to be compounded.
Okay.
And that would be a whole nother discussion about the nuances of like when something's um, like
It's like
patented.
getting it through a clinic versus getting an online sort
Yeah,
of situation.
I
Okay.
think a lot of research companies are going to have a harder time stocking that one because essentially it's moved out of the research space into approved pharmaceutical.
Okay. Okay.
The but I don't know. I think there's still a number of them that have it, and a lot of times before they really close the doors, there will be decent amount of time that goes by. The What I tell people, it's easy to worry about this great compound going away, but I can tell you there are so many amazing ones in the pipeline that are coming up.
No kidding.
Um,
Okay.
that for every one that goes away, there's going to be 10 more that pop up. There's Cobar Pharmaceuticals has got a really cool one they're working on that is essentially like a better MOTS-C. There's a molecule that's being looked at for stabilizing the cristae in the mitochondria. There's just all these awesome things. The company that came out with SS31 has another molecule that has better penetration to the brain because it's a small molecule and longer activity in the body, the SBT 272. So these things will find their way into the probably into the research space and
The
compounding things.
bodybuilders.
Yeah, we'll have options. Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to derail you there because you're kind of building on what are optimal peptides, so I'll let you kind of get back to it.
Yeah, with the optimal, I guess probably the best answer is um, going back to when we've identified a training stimulus, um, that's going to dictate like the nutrition that's going to be best to recover
Hmm.
from that, and that's also going to give us that list of the targets that we put to the side, the cellular pathways that we're working on for those adaptations to occur that we're going to see the benefit from. So if you think of that as your shopping list and you think about which of these am I checking off with, the foundation, the lifestyle, coherence, hydration, the stimulus from exercise, and with my nutrition, am I getting the structural support I need? And if I am, what's left over? What are the pathways I still need to put a check in the box by? And then with the thing to do is you kind of look up, these peptides, whichever one you might be interested in. For example, like trying to lose fat. So I know I need to get some stimulation for AMPK, which is going to be your fuel sensor and help make glucose and fat available for energy and help with autophagy. So if my target's AMPK, um, what am I going to have in this toolbox, this big toolbox of peptides that works on that? And as we kind of look in there, we're like, huh, I could use like MOTS-C. By disrupting the folate cycle, it creates a stress signal that triggers AMPK, energy sensor, triggers PGC1 alpha, mitochondrial biogenesis, and improves fuel switching. So if I'm in a hypertrophy phase where I'm going to be using high carbohydrates and I have to be able to switch fuels efficiently, MOTS-C might be a good choice. Um, Assuming, of course, we're structurally, and by structurally, I mean we have our phospholipids and plasmalogens in our diet so we can repair cell membranes and um, the inner
You're
membrane to
fueling
let
it,
some of
right?
it,
Yeah.
yeah. And then when we think about, NAD, everybody likes to talk about NAD, and um, that's a whole nother conversation. Let's just say, short Cliff Notes version, don't do NAD IV and don't do NAD injection. Um, the quick reason is when you do that, you put this bolus of NAD in your system, it upregulates NNMT, the enzyme that breaks it down. So you added, we'll say, five more, but then you broke down five more. So it's net gain zero. Additionally, like when you have a senescent cells, and anybody who's got inflammation has senescent cells, there's an upregulated CD38. CD38 is like a magnet for NAD. So when you dump it in your system, a lot of it's going to get sucked to those bad cells, and the good cells are going to be starving for it because the NNMT
Mm.
is driving it down. And cancer cells also have an upregulated CD38.
What
So
if you use 1-amino 5Q
that would be the
to?
smarter choice, yeah, because that's going to decrease NNMT. And by decreasing NNMT, you don't want to increase NAD, you want to decrease NNMT. The other way that you can really kind of go about optimizing your NAD pool is improving the recycling of it with a 1-MNA. Um, that's going to support your methylation pool, that's going to be really good for endothelial cells, and that's going to improve the recycling of NAD.
Okay, so here's a question: if you were to take NAD and then you took enough 1-amino 5Q, would that fix the problem of taking NAD injectable by itself alone?
No, the challenge is going to be that
Okay.
you're still going to have an upregulated CD38, and you could take apigenin. Apigenin will decrease CD38, but it's still upregulated significantly enough that it's like you're putting a Band-Aid over a bullet hole. You're
Okay.
fighting a losing battle. There are some real specific situations where like NAD could be practical, but generally speaking, when you look at the big push for it, the cost to a clinic is about 150 bucks, and what they sell those for is about 750
Yeah,
or
it's
up to
wild.
750. And when people go in there naively, they think, I got this flush and that's me getting energy. No, what you've done is you've fed all the senescent cells, so they just woke up. That's why you got a flush. And and then the they even say they feel bad when they're getting the IV. Well, of course you do. You just woke up the senescent cells, and then the next day, they have a little bit more energy because there's that little extra bit of NAD that the good cells got, and then you kind of get this crash, and they think, well, I got to go do NAD again. I felt so good the next day, and it creates
How do
this
they get away
cycle.
with that bad information?
I don't know if it's intentionally bad or if people just don't look at the pathways and think these things through. I always like to think that people act with goodwill in
Sure.
mind,
I
and
guess just,
the
but making it make sense. I mean, for you to sit down, I mean, because you're the one that's educating me right now, right? And like you broke it down really simply. Now, that's a really highly educated person who can communicate things clearly, and we may not always be in those spaces. But ultimately, when I think about a situation like this, it's like, okay, there has to be a couple of you hanging around a clinic somewhere and maybe talking to a clinician and saying, hey, this doesn't make actually any sense, because what you're just saying, make it make sense, that's all you're saying, right?
yeah, I think that and I know I'm guilty of this. If there's something that I really want to be true, I go selectively find the information that backs it
Me
up,
too.
and
Yeah.
yeah, I think we all do that.
Confirmation bias. Yeah.
Yep,
Hmm.
and I think that for physicians, it's marketed to them as this thing that can help with people that are recovering from alcoholism. It can help if somebody's sick. It can help, they talk about where it can help. And those aren't necessarily wrong, but those are specific context, and they're not giving you the full picture. Like, well, what's the whole picture around this? What else is going on a cellular level? What makes this acceptable at this time? And I think it's a lot like, almost really any supplement. We extrapolate like um, if this is good for metformin, if it can help with lowering blood sugar levels, well, it's got to be good for anybody that's trying to regulate blood sugar. Well, if we're uncoupling it, if it's uncoupling at complex one and we're not able to make energy and it's shutting off mTOR, we may have temporarily improved um, how we're handling that blood sugar, but we're
Mhm.
unable to gain muscle, we're going to lose muscle. If we lose muscle, we lose metabolically active tissue. If we lose metabolically active tissue, we're driving down insulin sensitivity.
Right.
And if we're uncoupling at complex one, we become inefficient at making energy. So going back to that whole everything comes back to energy and everything comes back to redox, we're not thinking big picture. So I guess my
So what you're
roundabout,
doing, which is really a beautiful thing, you're looking at the way the body works and how it's designed, and you understand it so well that you can input things so that it still works well augmented. And ultimately the people that don't fully understand the design, they're interjecting things. So it's kind of like I don't know, having taken an oral steroid and not supporting your liver, or something like that. Just the basics of what like a bro science person would do,
yeah,
right? So like you still have this higher picture of how the body works on a cellular level, which basically gives you the roadmap to the ultimate efficient athlete.
yeah, yeah. In fact, to build on what you said, and this is really, I give the credit to Dr. Seeds. He taught me to think this way, and this has been just a godsend for me in terms of sifting out everything. If you think about like, we got a picture here, and to anchor it, like the where we're going to put the first pin, everything is going to kind of be built around that. That's going to be redox. Redox is again gaining or losing electrons. The second pin is going to be flow of electrons, the metabolism. And everything that happens in a cell after that is a choice the cell is making to try to breathe and to balance redox. And if we just look at every decision we're making with regards to our health is how's it affecting redox? And
Mm,
is it allowing our cells to breathe or ferment when they need to? And
mm,
if they're not, why did they choose not to? Because our cell, they want to survive and they want to do the best thing for us. And they're so much smarter than we are, a lot smarter than me, that's for sure. And anytime they're making a decision, it's because based on the information they have, that's the best decision to make. So we got to look at where's this bad information coming from that's making them make a decision that we've got
mm,
information about that if they knew they wouldn't make. And this kind of goes back to the peptide to kind of tie it together when we think about peptides protocols or stacks or whatever. This is why I'm so adamant about less is more, because each of those peptides is going to be a signal, and a lot of signals creates a lot of noise, and a lot of noise makes it hard for the cell to figure out the redox thing and figure out electron
mm.
flow. And the harder we make it, the more mistakes it's going to make. Just like any of us, like if Trey or yourself or me, if we had to do five client consults at one time. You
Oh.
guys are better at this than I am, but I'd be dropping a lot of balls, and I'd probably be telling women to take men's doses of testosterone and terrible things. So, but if we have just one or two things we're focused on, we can do that pretty well, and ourselves kind of the same way. So as we're thinking about what are we going to put in a protocol, really keeping it as stripped down as possible, starting with one or two things and then assessing, is this doing what we thought it would? And if it's not, thinking, well, why isn't it doing what we thought it would? It takes a little bit longer, but the beauty of it is you're going to learn it a lot better, and it's going to keep you from making mistakes. And then when you do kind of piece together, this does this for me, this does this for me, you're going to know exactly what to reach for at the right time and be able to make some really intelligent decisions.
That makes sense. Um, yeah, it's really interesting. I talk to my clients a lot about like I'm a person of faith, and so I believe God created us. So I talk about God's design a lot and how the basis of that design is based off of a human in the Garden of Eden. And so we actually live in a world that we're not meant for. And so at that basis, if you were to sit here and think about your life and compare it to what it would be like in paradise, what is the difference? And there's a tremendous amount of stressors versus what's over here. And what you're doing and what I'm doing with a lot of my clients, especially even people with autoimmune conditions and things of that nature, the basics are broken.
Hmm.
There's nobody with an autoimmune condition that's, getting their water in properly, eating a nutritious, well balanced diet, getting the right exercise in. I mean, they might be doing it now if they're working with us now, but to get to a place of disease or autoimmune, you did not take care of yourself for a long period of time, and
Yeah.
that it down regulates to that point. So then it's like, okay, now I have to take this human being and I have to get them as close to the way that we're designed as possible without them having to move, to some 40-acre um, commune and like living,
Yeah.
singing kumbaya. But at
You
the
got to
end of the
work with what
day,
you got.
right. So like you build this building block of like a foundational way that they live. And so, but you're talking on a cellular level, which is, I mean, but like, dude, I could probably talk to you for days, just to kind of understand all the intricacies of what you're saying, because it's almost like you have these inputs as a coach. It's like, okay, we have supplements and we understand physiology. And then you have nutrition and how that impacts physiology. You have training and how that impacts physiology. And then you're going that much deeper into it. And so having that extra layer of knowledge just gives you that much more to build a better foundation on to help a person get to a place that is an optimal place. And man, I'm so full of questions now. It'd be really hard to stop me. So I'm not gonna dive into much more. But what I will say, what I will ask is, if like you gave us the ketone monoester as like a beginner thing, the SS31, and then you mentioned GHRP 2 or 6, and then tesamorelin. I think I
Uh-huh.
said that right. And so like if a person was, you know, um, you know, if a person was really just trying to feel better, um, are those the ones that you would do immediately, or is there like a couple of extra ones, or is that sort of the basic? Hey, if you go do that and you have all of the other foundational tools in place, then you should see a significant change.
Yeah, so I hate to leave you with a cliffhanger. I've got a consult in literally three
Yes,
minutes,
yeah,
but
sure,
that being said, I'd love to cover this in a part two with you guys. We could really
man, I
unpack
would
this,
love it. Yeah,
We can do a part two.
um, because it's a great question and it deserves more than the couple minutes I got to throw at
sure.
it.
Yes, start in there, Anthony, and then we'll do a part two. When I meet with you next week, we can chat and
Sure,
finish
yeah,
it because we got to chat
I
about
think,
the
and I love the
manufacturing.
yeah.
cliffhanger. Let's just hang there.
Yeah, hang
Yeah.
So
there.
this is
So
great.
end it with where people can find you, where they can find your school and
Yeah.
connect with you and that type of thing.
Sure, thank you. So on Instagram, it's just at and then my name, Anthony, Anthony, last name Castore, Castore. I've got a school community. I absolutely love it. I have so much fun with it, and I posted probably over 100 articles in there. It's called Castore and then colon built to adapt. And I talk about all this stuff, mitochondria, cellular medicine, training, my thoughts around that. But the real beauty of the community is more than just me talking. Like there's really smart people on there, great discussions, and it's just fun to participate in there. I've also got information in the school community, or you can message me directly. I do consulting for people. I build protocols. I mentor. I do all that fun stuff. So anything I can do to help people, I love. I feel blessed to be able to do what I do. I love having these conversations, and feel free to reach out. I'm really accessible, and you'll probably get more information than you care for. I ramble on.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we appreciate you
Thank you
coming
so
on, man.
much.
Yeah, man, we appreciate it. We'll have you on for part two, probably in a few weeks or something like that. We'll figure it. I'll check.
Sounds great.
But awesome, guys. Well, we'll get this uploaded. Let us know if you got any questions. Check out Anthony's school, and we'll have him on for part two. We'll see you later.
Thank you
Take
both.
care.